Welcome to the weekly reroll, everybody. A lovely D&D show where we talk about what happened this last week in Dungeons and Dragons on Twitch. Now, last week I did the 90-hour marathon stream, which was amazing and wildly successful. But that means that we didn't do the weekly reroll last week. So we're actually recapping the last 2 weeks of D&D here. And let's start with Roleplay Solemn. Roleplay Solemn. This was an interesting 2 weeks. I'm just going to recap them as if they were 1 week together. I'm not going to split them. So if you don't want Roleplay Solemn spoilers for either of the last 2 weeks, let me know. Or not, don't let me know. Just turn it off until Eban comes back on. You'll notice with the overlay switch. Anyway, Roleplay Solemn. The party's on their way to Greyvale, right? Because they're trying to get away with this kid and everything. And they've already met Smee, who's their new party member. Anyway, they're taking off towards Greyvale because that's where they want to go right now. Along the way, they find out that Smee, who's not only Largo's bestest, oldest friend, also has the ability to speak with small burrowing animals. And he takes this opportunity to talk with a couple of squirrels and be like, "Hey, squirrels, have you noticed anything around here that's strange?" And the squirrel that he talks to is like, "Yeah, there were 6 orcs hiding underneath that tree 6 days ago, and there were 6 wargs with them too." And Smee's like, "Wow, interesting." And then Smee's like, "Yep, the 6 of you should be careful." And of course, there's only 5 of them. The party wasn't, I don't know if the party picked up on it or not, but that was definitely like the squirrel has no idea what he's talking about. He might have saw some orcs under that tree a while ago, but he just can't count. He's got 1 intelligence. 6 orcs 6 days ago under that tree, and there's 6 of you, and the orcs had 6 wargs? I don't think so. Anyway, so we find about this. The party is being really careful in their travels as they get to Greyvale. Or they're trying to be really careful in their travels. And part of this has to do with these orcs that they're worried about. Anyway, so as they're traveling towards Greyvale, one night they stop and they're listening and they're waiting, and they're resting, and the person on watch sees like something glinting off of the hillside. And the person on watch, I forget who it is, it was a couple of weeks ago now, forgive me for that, comes down, warns the rest of the party. The party gets all ready for, take care of this. They use Margaret and, no, I'm sorry, what's her name? Oh my god, I'm blanking on her name. Carla and Margaret as bait, but the orcs apparently haven't noticed them. Yes, it turns out these are orcs. They're walking along the hillside, just going somewhere. They're apparently not after the party in the slightest, or I don't know the party's there. And the party watches the orcs go by. There's a lot of orcs, and they got some warg riders. It's kind of a scary thing, but the party lets them pass in the night. And once they pass, the party's like, "Fuck, let's just get out of here." So they finish their rest up. They try and talk with some more small mammals. Doesn't go well, and they take off. The next day, as they're traveling, someone rolls just a beautiful 20 on their perception check, and the party spots, or they smell orc, or there's something unusual. So they climb a hill, or this person climbs a hill, looks over, sees the orcs are camped during the day, like sleeping under some trees and resting. The party talks for a while about ways that they might be able to ambush the orcs, possibly kill the orcs while they sleep. But there's a lot of orcs, and the party decides, you know what? Maybe the 5 of us protecting this treasure, the child, shouldn't go out of our way to slay this giant party of orcs that we might not actually be able to kill. Okay, let's not do that. Let's just keep heading to Greyvale. So they keep going on to Greyvale, but there was a lot of discussion about different ways to kill the orcs. It was kind of a time-consuming thing. Along the way, they encounter this elf who's just like chilling, napping underneath the tree because they keep rolling wildly well. That's okay. Underneath the tree is this elf, and what's his name? Victarion walks up to the elf to be like, "Hey, elf friend, we totally mean you no harm. Just wanted to talk to you, see what's going on." Turns out it's the same elf that was riding a Pegasus earlier, and he gets on his Pegasus and is super worried about the encounter with the party. He's kind of fearful, but the party soothes him. They let him know that, hey, they're just there. It's cool. Don't worry about it. And he calms down and relaxes and talks to them for a while. Turns out he works for the Longborn Kingdom. He is one of their spies, and he had been kind of spying around in this area looking for weaknesses about Verossi, and kind of talks to the party for a bit. They exchange some information, too much information for me to explain now, and I don't want to pick the key bits of information because it's unclear of whether or not the party got key bits of information or whether they just got kind of vague ideas. So I would recommend rewatching that conversation. It might be an important conversation in the future. I just don't want to recap exactly the parts that I think are important. Anyway, after talking to him for a while, he's like, all right, I'm out of here. The party tries to convince him to take the child, and he's like, no, first off, the child might not survive the flight. Secondly, I don't necessarily believe... Oh, the party tells him that they have a child, and that it's the prophesized child. And he's like, I don't necessarily believe that it's a prophesized child. I don't necessarily believe in the prophecy. And even if I did, this is a dangerous flight for me on my Pegasus, so I'm not taking it back to the Longborn Kingdom. Have fun. He does warn them to stay clear of the oceans around where the front lines are. Says that the areas around the front lines are really dangerous at sea. But that, by sea, the party could get pretty far pretty quickly. The party pieces out with him, and they head to Greyvale. They get to Greyvale, poke around a little bit, they meet some guards, they meet some other things, they check out the inn for a little while, but ultimately they decide that they don't want to stay in Greyvale and that they don't want to hire a ship. So they leave Greyvale and head back overland on their way to Bairn. On their way to Bairn, they encounter these strange flying birds. Later, they see them again later, and later they recognize, or at least someone in the party recognizes that these are actually like bird men, people with big red feathered people with wings under their arms. But at this point, they just see these huge red birds, 20-foot wingspans, flying in the air, and they like hide until the birdmen go away. They keep going, and they come across these Wemmicks. Now, a Wemmick is, think of it like a centaur, but instead of the lower body of a horse, it's the lower body of a lion, and that's what a Wemmick is. So they come across these Wemmicks who are talking to the party and say, you know what, if you want to cross our territory, you need to give us some money, this is our land. And the party's arguing with them for a little while, like, hey, what the hell? Why do we have to pay this fucking toll? There's clearly no road. We're just traveling in the open. And the Wemmicks like, well, fucking Verossi bitches have made it hard for us, so we need the money to bribe them, to pay them, so we can continue doing our things. But they've also spotted Margaret, and they've also spotted. I always forget Carla's name. They spot Carla and Margaret. And so as the party's in the middle of paying them, Victarion's like, fuck it, we can't let these guys escape. They've seen Margaret, and they will bribe. They're happy to like sell it, bribe Verossi people. They might use this information to their advantage. We can't let them survive, so the party fights the Wemmicks. It's a brutal battle. Things are very close for a couple of members in the party. I think Smee falls but doesn't die. Almost dies, doesn't die. Jockry gets pretty close. One of the Wemmicks goes after Carla, but Jockry gets a nice sanctuary spell off on her that protects her and the child for a little while. Eventually the party defeats the Wemmicks, including, uses Entangle to keep a few of them from retreating and kill those off. 2 Wemmicks do escape, however, and the party gets a ridiculous amount of experience because you're not supposed to fight 9 Wemmicks with 5 party members. But, party continues their screw Neil attitude and screws me out of TPK again. Anyway, after the Wemmicks, they keep going. They see the Birdmen again. They're still not sure what they are. A few other minor things that are not worth noting. And then the party gets to Bairn. Now, Bairn is another small town on the side of a fjord. They're poking around Bairn, look for passage because they want to go to Vinderfell, because Vinderfell is a nice big town where they might be able to book passage wherever they want, or, it's a larger area, there's going to be more information available, and all these little towns that they visited, I guess all these little towns are really just Greyvale and Bairn. They're fairly safe places, it seems. There are Verossi personnel about, but they're not that big of a deal, or there's guards about, but they don't really... They're just doing their own thing, there's no large conspiracy, small town in the middle of nowhere, basically. So they want to go to Vinderfell and regroup and get some more information and maybe book passage on a ship or something. They're not really sure, but that's where they're headed. So they ask about, and they find this inn, and basically the entire second episode that we're recapping takes place in and around this inn. They find these sea captains who have various ships that are going about, and after some negotiations with these guys who are very suspicious and catch on to the party's lies because the party falls apart with their lies very quickly. I think we had Smee and Largo going up to them and being like, "Hi, my name is this, and his name is that, and we're looking for blah blah blah," and then they proceed to call each other by all the wrong names, and they're super sketchy about certain details, and the sea captains are like, "All right, what the fuck are you hiding from? Blah blah blah, blah blah blah," and they're like, "There's nothing, ha ha ha. We just want passage on your ship." Anyway, Victorian comes over, seals the deal, and pays a little bit extra so no one asks any questions, which the captain that they hire seems to be fine with. I guess they're not hiring him; they're booking passage on his ship because he's already doing his thing. They also hear about this Templar that's been hanging around, and they do investigate. They follow him around, see what he's up to, and the Templar are strange. There's only one here, but he's been he's pretty quiet. He keeps to himself, doesn't say much, has a lot of money available apparently, due to the rumors that they hear. But no one really knows what's going on with these Templar. They hear a lot of rumors about the Templar, and you should just watch the episode for the rumors about the Templar, actually, or at least that key bit. Largo and Smee decide that they're going to break into the Templar's room and see what the hell's going on. So they go and break into the Templar's room. It's a long process involving ropes and trees and no trees, actually. There's not a single tree involved in that process. But they climb on a roof, and they're breaking windows, and they're hiding, and they're trying to get his attention. Anyway, eventually they scare him out of his room. He hangs out in the bar for the rest of the night while they search the room. There's nothing in the room worth of value at all. It's completely empty. So whatever he took, because he's got a backpack, and he's got a shield, and he's got a sword. And that's pretty much all he's got with him. So whatever he's got, he's not sharing it. It doesn't leave it behind. He's super, super careful about it. In the meantime, Jockry, during all of this, lovely Jockry meets a couple of people who are smoking some pipes and goes up to them and starts smoking with them and hanging out with them and then gives them some opium to smoke. What the fuck, Jockry? So these guys who are just like hanging out in a bar end up smoking opium with this random dude that shows up in the bar and get fucking freaked out. The two guys who are now high as a kite on opium don't even know what's going on. They're completely oblivious to the world around them. They're so far gone. Their two friends hang out, or like, what the hell, bring them out of the bar, go grab one of the soldiers, the guards of the town, who comes over and arrests Jockry for just like giving opium to random people in a bar. Giving opium to random people in a bar. It's like, oh yeah, oh, you like whatever's in that pipe? Here, let me put that. This is great stuff. Oh, you're going to love this. Here, just try that. Oh my god, you've never done opium in your life, and that's not what you were expecting? Ha, whatever, who gives a shit? What the fuck, Jockry? So Jockry gets arrested for, being terrible and just evil and awful, and the rest of the party goes to break him out of jail. And we end that whole episode with them thinking about breaking Jockry out of jail and having to hop on a ship in the next morning, or the day after, to leave for Vinderfell. And that's what happened in Roleplay Solemn. It was a good couple of episodes. I really liked the last one, the second one, that we recapped here. So you should check that out if you're interested in more detail on that. If not, you can hop in on Wednesday or Thursday when we play. Anyway, let's hop over to Roleplay Eban. Now, Roleplay Eban, we missed a week because we had to cancel because Cats had a thing. But we did have a second episode last week. So, Roleplay Eban. Roleplay Eban ended off when the party gets into this town and there is Fake Rich talking to one of the guards. And the party's like, what the fuck, there's Fake Rich. We start this week with Real Rich beating the bloody shit out of Fake Rich. They fight. The guards kind of just hang out and watch the battle go on, even though they had originally tried to stop it. Now they're just like, fuck it, let them fight, see what happens. They fight. Real Rich wins, of course. Of course, Real Rich wins. And the guards don't really care. They're kind of like, well, there's no law here. We guards kind of just keep order in the town, but we let whoever has the strongest sword win most of the time, so whatever, who gives a shit. The party looks around a bit more, searching for information about any jobs that might be available, and they hear about these ogres that are causing problems, and they keep raiding the town and whatnot. Naked ogres, by the way. So the party decides to go defeat these ogres. We get lost for a little bit, and then Rich has this ridiculous hallucination about people. I think it was people in a cart being driven by horses, and like that just like run right through the rest of the party. Rich fucking freaks out because clearly he's either hallucinating or seeing something that's not real about these like visions that move through them. Anyway, it was weird. He freaks out. The rest of the party eventually calms him down. They get their shit together. Rich is a little freaked out, but it doesn't matter. And they continue on their way to find these ogres. They find the ogres, the ogre encampment. There's also some orcs about, and they make these intricate battle plans about how they're going to fight them. And then they go in at night, try and slit their throats in the sleep, get a couple of them, but then battle ensues, and all the plans that they had, all the preparations they had fall apart, mostly due to Rich, because he's just a wild card, kind of. And they fight the rest of the remaining ogres and orcs. They kill all the remaining ogres and orcs, start looting everything, and they find this woman in a cage. Rich immediately tries to set her free. Everyone else no, we must ask her questions and interrogate her. And Rich is like, seriously, she's a woman in a cage in the middle of an ogre camp. Why don't we just set her free? She's probably on our side. What the fuck, guys? You're so weird. So eventually Rich finds the key, lets her out. The rest of the party's looting left, right, and center. And yeah, and so Rich is walking with the girl away from everyone else to talk to her, see what's going on. She grabs one of the hatchets out from Rich's waist and starts attacking him. He chases her down, tackles her, sits on her. The rest of the party goes over, figures out what's going on. Turns out she's with the ogres and orcs, and the party. Rich eventually knocks her unconscious because she keeps trying to speak in Elven, and it's bullshit. And Rich beats her bloody. They take her back to the town. And Largo? No, not Largo. What's his name? Cobblepot. Cobblepot casts Charm Person on her to interrogate her. And the party, he keeps her in a room by himself, while the rest of the party waits outside. And they interrogate her. Using the Charm Person, they interrogate her to figure out what's going on. Turns out she's definitely with the ogres. She wants to destroy the town. She radiates evil with the detect evil being cast, so she's pretty evil. During the interrogation process, Cobblepot leaves for a moment to go talk with the rest of the party, like, hey, this is what's going on, blah, 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 blah. And when he tries to go back in the door, she's locked it. Party freaks out, bashes down the door, and she has summoned some sort of door/portal somewhere and walked through. Everyone jumps after it. Well, not everyone jumps after it. Rich jumps after it. Ricardo goes after it. Cobblepot starts to go after it, but can't make it inside. And Riley's like, fuck that shit. I am not going through any more portals. This is no. So we end with Rich and Ricardo having gone through this portal with this woman, while Cobblepot and Riley stay back in the inn. And that's where we left off with Roleplay Eban. That was pretty good. It's pretty good. All right, Misclicks. Oh, by the way, Roleplay Evan should be this Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific time. Misclicks D&D time. Ready? All right, so the party in Misclicks is, let me look it up on the map, hanging out still in Northall, and they're trying to get they're trying to either get passage to Beggar's Cove or steal a ship to get to Beggar's Cove. And in the process of asking around where these ships are going, they get a bunch of interesting replies. There's some stuff that goes on that I don't want to mention that was very important that no one noticed at all whatsoever, so you might want to check that out. And after all, and eventually they book passage aboard this ship with this captain who's a female named Mac, and supposedly they're headed way over to Shargaron or something, way off to the side. Doesn't matter. And as they leave port, there is a ship that starts chasing after them. Or, people chase after them on the docks. But the ship takes off anyway, and apparently the people on the ship aren't asking any questions. It's uncertain as to whether the party is being chased or the ship is being chased. Unsure. Anyway, a chase happens, but since they're ships, it's not a super exciting chase, but it doesn't matter. The ship keeps sailing, and this weird storm appears on the horizon. It's definitely a non-natural storm, and it's pretty nasty looking. The ship captain, Mac, sails right for the storm. I mean, not like dead in the storm, like off-center to the storm, but it's still heading for the storm. And as everything closes, the ship chasing them decides that they don't want any part of that, and they take off. The storm is nasty. It's really nasty. The party ends up having to pitch in and keep the ship afloat, working on it for a little while. Eventually, they manage to get out of the storm with some amazing rolls, and some amazing rolls to keep the party and the ship from sinking. And on the other side, again, no one on the ship asks any questions, but the party starts asking questions like, "Hey, why aren't you asking questions about us? Like, what's going on? Like, what do you think about that?" And they start getting curious. And the people on the ship are like, "Well, look, we weren't going to ask any questions of you. What are you doing?" And there's this moment, a lot of moments of back and forth. Each side is like, "Well, I don't want to reveal anything, but what do you want to tell me?" You know. And the party starts getting really suspicious and starts searching around, and the other guys notice it, and they start getting really suspicious, and everything kind of starts freaking out. So during this process, it turns out that the ship sustained some damage in the storm and is now leaking, and they have to head to Ceasefire to repair the ship and to resupply because, you know, there's some issues going on. Party thinks, you know what, this is probably a good opportunity. We need to find out if this is a real leak. If it's a real leak, then we'll let them go to Ceasefire. If it's a fake leak and they're just trying to change plans on us without telling us, then we can, you know, then we'll just kill them right now because they might be trying to turn us in. Who knows, right? So they try and figure out if it's a real leak or if it's a fake leak, and it's difficult to tell. There's a lot of interesting and fun role play that happens with Tyrant, the Minotaur, played by Jeff. So you should check that out too. That was good. Anyway, so the party keeps going to Ceasefire. The ship keeps going to Ceasefire, and everyone gets called on deck as the ship passes between two uninhabited islands. Mac, the captain, then announces that the party is going to have to disembark and go chill on one of the islands that Mac wants nothing to do with them, that they're sketchy as fuck, and they're asking too many questions, and she doesn't trust them anymore. So, peace out. The party decides that they don't like this plan at all, and a fight ensues. It's a nasty fight. Mac goes missing at the very beginning of the fight because, there's what is it? Stinking cloud cast that, makes people cough and hack and puke and whatnot. So Mac goes missing at the beginning of the fight while the rest of the party, or the rest of the ship fights with the party. The battle ends with one unconscious member of the ship and a very badly injured first mate and a missing Mac. The first mate and the unconscious guy eventually try to escape, and they both get killed. So now the ship is owned by the party, inhabited solely by the party and their friend, whose name I'm blanking on right now, that they took from the mines previously. And they don't have enough people to crew the ship, and they don't know where Mac is. Mac is missing. But they do loot the ship and look for stuff, but now it's their ship. And we'll see where that's going to go, because we really don't know what's going to happen with this. We'll see. Bum, bum, bum. All right, moving on to Dicing with Death. Oh, by the way, Misclicks is tomorrow. I should figure that stuff out sooner. Dicing with Death, starring Balrog Blacksteel, which is a great name. So we left Balrog Blacksteel hanging out at the pit in the Cooling Sands. So he goes to find a person to sell off all his silks to, because he traded the gold leaf for the silks. Now he's trading the silks for gold coins, so he actually has something he can use easily and readily. So he sells those off for like 100 GP, which starts a whole series of events right there. Where is my recap? Here we go. So while he's chatting with his friend Patty, he notices that this gold that he has is literally disappearing from him. He manages to grab the last bit of it in his hands, and then he opens his hands and watch as the gold turns to light, and then starts moving away. He chases after the gold and rolls a natural 20, the first of many OP breaking bullshit rolls that happen. This is such a ridiculous week for Ryan. Oh my god, the bastard. Anyway, so he starts chasing the gold, and he notices that it actually goes into the pit. Now, the pit is a giant pit in the middle of the town, which is, endlessly deep and has two spiral staircases running down along the inside of it. It's been there since time immemorial, and no one really knows what's going on, but it's this weird, magical, bottomless pit. So he goes down to the pit for a little bit, and built into the pit along the stairwell are different catacombs. So there'll be like a little landing and a small gate, and you can go inside, and there's buried bodies and blah, blah, blah. Balrog goes in there, starts walking around, fights a couple of giant rats, a handful of them, takes some damage, but keeps going. And starts investigating the pit, tries to figure out where the light went inside this tomb, because it goes specifically into this one catacomb. Finds this room with a statue who's holding a sword, and how it looks like there's room for him to hold a torch in his other hand. Looks around, but doesn't, there's nothing really here. Goes into this other room, and there's a pot of gold. What? There's a pot of gold just sitting in this other room with some cryptic words about the victor getting all the gold. And so he's suspicious. He, does a lot of testing with the pot, make sure it's not trapped. Turns out it's not trapped. There's nothing super weird about it, so he takes the gold. And as he's taking the gold, one of the skeletons from inside this room starts crawling out of its crypt. It's got a sword and everything. So Balrog uses, since he's an evil cleric, uses Control Undead and gains control of the skeleton. Then, after testing the skeleton to make sure that he's properly controlling it, he orders the skeleton to attack him. Fight ensues. The skeleton wins, and with his falling unconscious thoughts, he's like, "Don't kill me after all." He commands the skeleton not to destroy him. He wakes up some days later. The skeleton is still in the exact position that he left him in. And Balrog then, goes around, disarms the skeleton, kills the skeleton, takes the gold, and flees. He goes back out of the pit, and as he's leaving, someone has since relocked this gate, and this is kind of a interesting point, that someone keeps shutting the gate and locking the gate. To get into the catacombs, Balrog actually had to break the lock with his maul. So this time, as he's leaving, there's a new gate and a new lock and a new chain on the entrance to the catacombs that leads out into the pit. So Balrog, once again breaks this, but it takes some time to break, and there's a lot of noise. And as he's leaving, some people show up. It's a priest and a couple of guards, and Balrog is talking with the priest, and they're yelling at each other. And eventually, the priest tries to turn undead on Balrog because they're terrified that he is a monster that's coming out of the crypt. And turn undead works. What the fuck? We find out that Balrog is now cursed and undead. Dun dun dun. Anyway, he gets turned. He has to flee. He runs down deep into the pit. And eventually, as time passes, he decides to go back out. He waits down there for like a day or something, or 2 days or 3 days. And he waits until he's at full HP. Actually, he waits like 10 days down at the pit. And in the process, while he's waiting down there, he ends up casting Cure Light Wounds on himself, which does damage instead of healing damage. And so he learns that Cause Light Wounds is a way to heal him, not Cure Light Wounds. That he's taking damage from things that should heal. Blah blah blah. Anyway, Balrog goes back to the surface, finds the temple where the priest lives. Tries to open the door, but as he grabs onto the door, it burns him and he takes damage. As he steps onto the grounds of the church, it's just wildly uncomfortable and very difficult for him to be there. He eventually, managed to knock on the door of the church, and the priest comes out, and Balrog and the priest fight for a moment, or there's some talking, and then a battle. Balrog ends up killing the cleric. Then Balrog retreats down to the pit. Then he decides, during the next night, because he keeps going out at night, because during the day he gets managed to do attacks and armor class. During the night, everything's fine. During the night, he goes back up. He goes to the library, eventually gets access to the library at the middle of the night. There's some adventure around here because the librarians don't want to let some random guy in who's trying to bash down the door at 2 in the morning. But eventually they let him in. He talks with the old wizened man who runs the library. And they're like, yeah, well, you're cursed to be undead. Well, it's none of our business. Just, don't cause any problems, and we're here to help everyone, and you seem to not be an evil person, and you're actively trying to break your curse, so we'll help you use our library. It's fine. He does some research on the pit, and he does some research on curses, which is too long to recap here, and goes back down into the pit, trying to find a way to break the curse. As he does, there's this apparition that appears to him. It appeared before and told him, that to tell him that it keeps talking about the family and how he's part of part of the family now. And he speaks with the apparition again, and the apparition once again starts talking about the family and how he's here to stay, blah, blah, blah. And that if he goes deeper into the pit, he can find more information about this. So Balrog goes deeper into the pit and finds this crazy door that looks like it has leaves growing out of it, but he's thousands of steps down. You're hundreds and hundreds of feet down into this pit. So it's just like a tiny dot of light above you now. You're way, way, way far down there. These steps, which he found out earlier, seem to go down forever. No one knows who built the steps. The steps have always been here, and God knows what happened, what's deeper down in the pit. So Balrog goes into this door, which it's a living door that has branches coming out of it with tree leaves and shit, which doesn't make any fucking sense. There's no reason for that stuff down there. It's strange. Goes through the door, keeps walking down the hallway, which gets larger and larger until he comes to a double set of doors, which is the same tree branch sort of thingy, and the doors open before him automatically. Motion detecting doors are a thing of the past, guys. They've been around forever. Don't let people lie to you about them. In this room that he enters into, it's a semicircular room with pillars along the outside, and the apparition man sitting on what do you call it? An altar that is sitting on a raised dais. Totally dais. And there's about 60 people just chilling around him, just sitting. Conversation happens. Balrog learns that these are all undead people who have been cursed the same way that he's been cursed, and this apparition guy is their leader, except in this time he's actually in the flesh. And they talk for a while, and he's like, yeah, well, I've been here 500 years, and these people have been coming over the course of the years, and we're just going to wait until we have enough people, and then we're going to go take over the world. We're building a small army right now, and now you're part of us. You're part of the family. Come, sit with us, wait with us. Time has no meaning. We're undead. We don't need food. We don't need water. We don't need sleep. We can do whatever we want. Just come sit with us for a couple hundred years, because I've been sitting here 500 years, and who gives a shit? We're undead. We're immortal. Balrog decides not to. He doesn't want to wait 1,000 years in a pit to go do something. So he goes up to go find the merchant that originally gave him the gold, because that's what kind of started all this shit, is the merchant gave him this gold that was magical, and then he killed the skeleton, and now he's cursed, and it's really unclear as to where the curse actually happened. It's a very big point of contention. When did the curse happen, and who started the curse? Because if you can find who started the curse, you can probably find find a way to break the curse, right? And he's not happy with this curse. He doesn't like it. So he goes to the merchant, talks to the merchant. The merchant freaks out, and he fights the merchant, kills the merchant. Guards show up. He fights the guards, kills some guards. He kills a bunch of guards during this whole day. I skipped over a few of them. And he goes back down to the pit once more. Goes to the pit. It's like, hey, I killed the merchant, and everyone's like, what the fuck? That merchant was tricking more people and bringing us more undead. He was a great asset to us. Why would you kill him? And Balrog's like, well, whoops. And then he commands undead, a bunch of these people that are sitting around him, totally scores high on it, commands a bunch of undead, has them hold back the people he's not commanding and form a path all the way to the apparition man. They do so. And of course, during this whole time, Balrog is just rolling incredibly well. On the opposed roll to see whether his undead could hold back my undead, he scores well. On the roll for how many undead he rolls 2d6 and scores a 10. On his roll of this and that, he just scores really high. He goes to fight the apparition man. He criticals him right off the bat, does a ton of damage. Then, the battle continues for a little while, let's just say. And Balrog comes out victorious after some ridiculous high rolls, and we all hate Balrog now. I hate Balrog now. Kills the apparition man, who was a high-level priest, apparently. And the undead kind of stop fighting and look to him as their new leader. Balrog is, asked them what's going on. They're like, well, we don't really know. We've just been listening to this guy. He keeps talking about the family. He's our leader. He says we should wait. I think we should wait, but you're kind of in charge now. What do you want to do? And so Balrog's like, well, you guys chill here. I'm going to go figure some stuff out. I'll be back later. And so Balrog takes off towards the temple at the end of the world, also known as the Lower Rift, because Balrog's convinced that he needs to get his soul back from Falumbra in order to break the curse. So he tries to buy, or he runs to the next town because 19 con plus an endurance proficiency, he can run all day. He runs to the next town, Bright Rock, where he tries to buy a pony. Turns out the ponies do not like him. Animals are fucking freaked out by this guy. They panic and flee as he approaches. So he can't buy a pony. Whatever, he's cool with that. He continues on his way to Sand's Edge, where he encounters a nice group of hobgoblins. Meanwhile, the gold that he took from the tomb, he took the gold as he left the pit, goes back. So it disappeared from him anyway. He doesn't know what to do with it. It's just gone. On his way to Sand's Edge, a bunch of kobolds pop out of the sand surrounding him, trying to surprise him and ambush him. They demand money, all of his money, and he fights them. Well, there's 16 of them. He uses Cause Fear on one, which flees right away. So there's 15 of them now. And they try this ridiculous overbear strategy where they attack him, where you make a group attack, basically. You just try and jump on someone and pin them to the ground. You're trying to overbear them. So they all make one attack rolls together. And in the process of this attack, since Barrel's a multi-class fighter, not Barrel, since Balrog is a multi-class fighter, he gets attacks of opportunity as they try to overbear him. And these are kobolds, so they only have D4 HP, and he just slaughters them. He every attack of opportunity that he gets, he hits because he gets +4 since they're making unarmed attacks against him. Blah blah blah. And the kobolds, in their attempt to overbear him, they do this 3 times. Starting with 15 and then just lowering down as their numbers get smaller and smaller, rolls 3 ones in a row. The kobolds roll 3 ones in a row. One of my die betrayed me. In fact, it's probably right here. This one. Oh yeah, you can even see the one was still up front. This motherfucking die rolled 3 ones in a row for an attack on Balrog. Balrog was surrounded 15-1. And I know they're kobolds and they only have D4 HP, but 15-1, and they rolled 3 ones in a row on their attack. And since it was a group attack, there wasn't any other things. I mean, they threw their javelins, but oh god, I was so pissed. Anyway, Balrog slaughters the kobolds without mercy, and we end we end Dicing with Death with Balrog just destroying everything in his path, gaining control over 60 undead, and all that fun stuff. So screw you, Balrog. Screw you to hell. I hate you so much right now. I don't even want to talk to you. Thank God you're not a real person. Anyway, moving on to Roleplay R&D. And damn it, I did it again. Dicing with Death will be Sunday. Moving on to Roleplay R&D. Again, I don't watch R&D, although I will be on R&D in a couple of weeks. I will be the new guest, as was revealed on the marathon stream. So, Roleplay R&D. Ryan, as in Ryuzilla, replaces Day 9 as Magnus the Ranger, and he's got a pet bear named I don't know. Someone taught me how to pronounce it, and I've since forgotten. Anyway, Magnus. He starts alone with his bear, being chased by hellhounds. They're trying to escape these hellhounds, and it's unclear as to why he's being chased by hellhounds, but he's being chased by hellhounds. And he comes across this pit that's blocking his path, and he tries to jump over the pit. And there's a series of terrible rolls that happens where he fails miserably and falls into the pit. Apparently gains a lot of experience from failing all these rolls because that's kind of the system that they're working on right now. Anyway, they're falling into this pit, and one of the hellhounds gets pushed in afterwards, and he and his bear fight the hellhound as they fall down the pit because apparently this is like an endless pit sort of thing. They kill the hellhound and eventually fall into this stream of water, this pool of water. They climb out, and there's a door. They go through the door and pull out a torch and light the torch. So they're in this new room now that's at the bottom of this pit that has some water in it. In this room is a large pillar with a blue gem inside of it. Magnus also sees the Spider Woman in the room, and so he fucking panics, grabs the blue gem, and takes off. The Spider Woman lets out this horrible scream. The rest of the party, who's in this other room nearby, hears the screaming of a woman, thinking that's like a damsel in distress. Wyman, Wyman urges the party to go find this woman because, hey, she needs help, right? So Lobelia finds the door behind which the sound was coming from, searches for traps, finds some traps, disables it, unlocks the door, and they run in. They meet up with Magnus, who's like running, trying to run out, and being chased by the Spider Woman. And the party's like, well, this looks pretty obvious. Let's kill the Spider Woman. So the party works with Magnus to kill the Spider Woman, Spider Lady, and her babies, which are the mind-affecting larvae the party fought in an earlier session, if you're keeping up with us. Anyway, Lobelia almost dies, but is saved at the very end by Rock. And the party eventually kills the Spider Woman. They loot her and decide to make camp and rest in the room with the jewel, in the room that had the jewel in the pillar and the Spider Woman spawned in, to recover and whatnot. They find out it is a scrying jewel, and it doesn't play much part in the rest of the episode, but who knows? Maybe it'll be important next time. Anyway, they go back through the door where the party started, and they notice now they might have missed it before. Maybe they missed it before. Maybe this is new. Who's to say? But there's this human-sized crack in the right wall with this weird cinnamon smell emanating from it. Lord Wyman, and Magnus decide to go up through the crack and investigate. So they go into the crack and they find a big room blocked by bars that has a pit in the middle of it, and the pit is filled with all these coals. I don't know what the bars are. Anyway, in this pit filled with coals are these 3 serpent-bodied men rolling around. Two of them, the two of them, as in Lord Wyman and Magnus, decide to go back to the rest of the party and tell them what they found out. As they go back down and they're explaining, well, shit, there's this room with all these serpents and these coals. I don't know what the hell's going on. The party overhears someone talking through the crack, and so they listen and they hear through the crack someone's talking. They set up a trap, or Lobelia sets up a trap. When the serpent starts to come down the crack, detects the trap, starts talking about it, and Lobelia's like, fuck, set it off anyway! Sets it off and kills the serpent man. A big battle ensues in the hallway, where the party is, with this large serpent man and a smattering of smaller serpent men come down through the crack and start fighting the party. One of the serpent men even summons a fire elemental at some point in the battle. It's also worth to note that during this battle, the serpent men are all on fire. They're just on fire fighting the party, which is pretty cool. The party barely survives. Rock almost dies, but on his death save, I don't really know exactly how this works, but apparently in this system, if you go to 0 HP or below, you roll 2d6, and on certain rolls you might live, other ones you might die, blah, blah, blah. He rolls an 11, which is really good on 2d6, and comes back to life at 5 HP. The rest of the party, the battle's over, eventually. The rest of the party goes up into the crack and explores the room, while Rock, who just came back from life, casts Animate Dead on the leader of the Serpent Men, bringing the Serpent Man under his control and has an ability to talk with the Serpent Man. The party that went up the crack hears more Serpent Men coming from behind this door, and they wait, though. Rock comes back up the crack with his Serpent Man, his Serpent Servant now, and tells the Serpent Servant to go through the door. And they go through the door. The serpent guy leads the way, the rest of the party follows, and this room has more serpent men inside of it. Dun, dun, dun. Anyway, the undead serpent guy talks with the remaining serpent men through, because, Rock directs him to, and the remaining serpent men are like, okay, cool, you can pass. That's fine. We'll let you go. We're not going to kill you. You've got this, this big serpent guy from before who's vouching for you. You're cool. It's fine. Rock gets a little bit greedy. He's like, well, what if I'm your new leader now, huh? And the other serpents decide, well, if you can defeat our elder serpent in solo combat, single combat, one-on-one, without any help, then yeah, we'll follow you and you can be our leader. That's cool. So the party buffs Rock as best as they can. Lobelia puts some poison on Rock's weapons, and Rock goes to fight the serpent elder named Heptef. And they fight him in the room with the corpse of the great worm Cathrist. The fight isn't very long, but it's a very close battle, and in the end, Rock defeats Heptef. But as soon as he defeats Heptef, the bones of Cathrist start to reform. The skull/head of the great worm, as it's reforming, looks at the great worm Cathrist, looks at Rock and says, "Little human, you have slain my high priest. What is it I should do with you now?" And it's worth noting that as the skeleton of the great worm Catharist is reanimating, Rock notices this big-ass jewel buried in the pile of bones that no one really knows what's up. There's some speculation, but we'll see what that big-ass jewel is all about. And that's it for R&D. I think there's another week, maybe 2 weeks left in R&D before we switch over and I start playing, but we'll see. And moving on for Roleplay Dark Heresy. Roleplay Dark Heresy did not happen this week. There was no Roleplay Dark Heresy, but there might be next week. There might be Dark Heresy next week. We will see. And yeah, that's it. That is the weekly reroll, guys. That's our show for you. If you'd like to stick around, I'm going to be playing through some Dishonored. I'm going to try and do a stealth only, no kill, stealth only mission. We'll see if that works. I mean, occasionally you have to kill people here and there, but whatever. Stealth it as best as we can. And I will see you guys next week on Monday for the weekly reroll. This time we're going to come back at the normal time, and everything will be good and golden. So that's it. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.